Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow, you are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep. While I weep, O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Is my fur okay? Greetings, ghouls and goblins. Welcome to the eerie fairy realm where whimsy and horror take the helm. I have a bunch of fall and spooky book recommendations for you. Some of these I've read and some I have not. I have a wide variety of formats and genres, so hopefully there will be something for everyone. I will have them organized by category, and some of these could fit in more than one, but I wanted to keep it somewhat balanced. I have novels, novellas, short stories, and poetry, as well as manga and novelizations of movies. The genres will include sci-fi, thriller, fantasy, classics, literary fiction, and even nonfiction, and of course, horror. And with horror, I do have a few different subcategories like vampires, hauntings, possessions, and I even have some that are set on or around Halloween. I'm just going to give a brief summary of each, and if you stick around to the end, I have a super secret special surprise book that I guarantee you will not be expecting. We'll go ahead and start out with poetry, since I opened with one of Edgar Allan Poe's poems there at the beginning. That one was called A Dream Within a Dream, and I would recommend any of his poetry. I have this book right here. It's a collection of his poetry and his fiction, so his short stories, and he has a full book in the back here as well. Some of his short stories I would recommend, or you may be familiar with, are Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Mask of the Red Death, The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher, Ligeia, The Oval Portrait, and The Pit and the Pendulum. Short story collections: At Home with the Horrors by Sammy Scott, Explore the Horrors Lurking Behind Your Front Door. This is an excellent collection. This changed my mind about short stories, and now I need to read a short story collection each month. Grim Horizons by Andrew Van Wey. This is a blend of horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. I highly recommend this book as well, in particular the short story A Feast of Infinite Rot. And They Lurk by Ronald Malfi, and this is a collection of 5 horror novellas. Novellas. We have the series Midnight Companions by Luke Flaherty, and these are stories to tell at the witching hour. These also include trippy illustrations. The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This is a ghost story by the author who wrote Gone Girl. Goddess of Filth by V. Castro, and this is The Craft But Make It Mexicana. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, and this is the classic Headless Horseman. And if you want a silly witchy slasher, there's Slasher Witch at the Water Park by Penny Moons. Sci-fi. We have Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and I'm sure we all know what this is about. A T-Rex who would have a terrible time at tea time. And the classic, the one and only, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Also, sorry about the little light reflections there. I tried to fix it and I cannot. And what would this fall and spooky book recommendation list be without the classic, the dark academia thriller, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is a suspenseful and chilling psychological thriller. And then continuing on with more of just those fall vibes, I'm going to switch over to a bit more cozy fantasy. First one is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Every coffee shop needs a rat baker named Thimblet. And this is one of my favorite childhood stories, The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. This is translated from the German. where you become a part of the story yourself. And lastly, we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is about a magical circus that arrives without warning. And if you're looking for some witchy stories, there's The Lantern's Ember by Colleen Houck. And this is her spin on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and I believe this is also set around Halloween. Then we have Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This is the villain origin backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West. And lastly, we have Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This is a witchy tale about finding your inner strength at rock bottom. For books that are set on or around Halloween, I have a couple of those. The first one is A Night in the Lonesome October by Roger Zelazny. And this is a fun, trippy story where the main characters are animals and their humans are the secondary characters. And I know it's a little late now, but something fun about this book is there are 31 chapters, so you can start reading it October 1st, read a chapter a day, and then you finish the book on Halloween. Then we have Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. And this is about horror writers who go to spend the night in a haunted house on Halloween. And if you like possession horror, I have a couple recommendations. Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. Does she have a mental illness? Is she faking it? Is she acting out? Or is she really possessed? And then My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And this is an 80s supernatural thriller. I would recommend maybe looking up content warnings. Next up is the biggest category that I have, and that is hauntings, which is also one of my personal favorites. And this is The Right Hand of Evil by John Saul, and this is where the house seems to have a life of its own. Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey is about a ghost hunting TV show that posts up at a haunted building. White Horse by Erica T. Worth. Heavy metal, ripped jeans, Stephen King novels, and indigenous lore. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. And this is a gothic fantasy about a house with secrets. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Is her childhood home really haunted, or her dad just make it up for his book? Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this is a dual timeline about a mysterious motel. And finally, Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. An IKEA knockoff furniture store is haunted? And next up is another personal favorite of mine, vampires. And we have The Delicate Dependency by Michael Talbot. This was published in 1982. It's not your typical vampire story. This is more about secrets, arts, sciences, and who holds vigil over human progress. And then we have the classic Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. And this is about a vampire who faces the dark stretch of eternity. And then Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. And this is about, a book club in the South, set in the 80s. And they think their new neighbor is a vampire. And lastly, of course, I couldn't do a vampire section without Dracula. And I wanted to recommend this edition in particular. This is the Barnes & Noble edition. This includes not only Dracula, but all of his works. He has a bunch of short stories in here, such as Dracula's Guest and The Lair of the White Worm. Next up, I have a few classics for you. The first one is Dante's Divine Comedy, and this is about a man's journey through the 3 realms of the afterlife: hell, purgatory, and heaven. The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. I should have looked that up, sorry. But this is about a ghost who gets VIP treatment at the opera. And lastly, one of my personal favorites, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. It's a quiet creep, the unsettling undercurrent. Do they deserve the wrath from their neighbors? My next category are retellings or books that are inspired by other books. And another favorite of mine, The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavisky. And this is about a horror club at school that takes pranks a little too far. Opium and Absinthe by Lydia Kang, or Kong. Sorry, I should have looked that up too. I'm so sorry. And this is set during the time that Dracula was published. We have our main character here who thinks that vampires may actually be real, but also she may not really know because she's so, messed up on things. Then we have Sign Here by Claudia Lux. This is a satire that references Dante, and it's about someone who works in hell who is trying to get a promotion. And we're getting into the last three categories. The next one is novelizations of movies. Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. This is a creepy labyrinth fairy tale. Then we also have Hocus Pocus, illustrated by Gris Grimley. And this is about three witchy sisters who are accidentally brought back to the land of the living. Next up, I have a couple for nonfiction. The first one is From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. And this explores death rituals from several different countries around the world. One in particular that I will always remember is the Tibetan sky ritual. And lastly, we have Medusa's Gaze and Vampire's Bite, The Science of Monsters by Matt Kaplan. And this is an insightful guide to monsters. It includes giant animals and chimeras, beasts and sea creatures, dragons, ghosts, vampires, zombies, and werewolves, and some other creatures as well. And I do have a couple manga recommendations. I have one cozy and one horror. The first one is I Am a Cat Barista by Hiro Majima? Majima? I think that's how you say it. And I really should have looked up these names. I'm sorry. And this is about a mysterious cat cafe that can only be found by weary souls. And I mean, what's more cozy than a cat that serves you coffee? And then for the anti-cozy, we have Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This is not your typical villain or antagonist. The terrorizer is actually a shape, a spiral. You will not look at mushrooms or snails the same again. And now, for the super secret special surprise, we have something unique, something you wouldn't expect. Wanted to have something different, something that I hadn't seen anybody else recommend. I know some of these books on the list you've seen around, probably, at least I have. Some of them, though, I haven't. So I wanted to show some of those books that maybe you don't know about yet. The last recommendation I have for you is a book, but it's a little different. It is a coloring book, an adult coloring book, if you can't tell. And this is the dark fantasy horror. It has pages like that, pages like that. We have this really intense one. I found out about this coloring book through Meg at Reading with Meg. It was actually one of her sponsors. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta get that right now. That's great. I've never seen anything like it. So I will include a link to her channel. If I can find a link to get this, I'll include that. I don't know if it's like it's for her, I think it's an affiliate link. So I don't know if I could include that necessarily since it's not really mine to share. I don't know how that stuff works. But I can at least like find this on Amazon and I'll link that so you can get it if you want. So that's gonna wrap it up for my fall and spooky book recommendations and TBR. I hope you found at least a book or two that you would like to read this season. Please let me know if you've read any of these, if you've added any to your TBR now, and I wish you spooky reading. Till next time.